Okay, we're just waiting a few seconds for everybody to join us this morning. Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to our Regeneration in Surrey event. I hope you enjoy listening to our speakers from the comfort of your own homes. I'm Rosie Andrews, I'm co-chair for the Constructing Excellence Surrey Club alongside Will Burkitt of Faithful and Gould. I'm also the new business manager for Wilmot Dixon Construction, covering Surrey and further afield. For any new attendees today, welcome. Constructing Excellence is a platform from which to stimulate, debate and drive much needed change in the construction sector. Our thought-leading members from the entire supply chain, clients, consultants and end users all share a vision for change through innovation and collaboration. We're always looking to drive engagement with our audience. So if you'd like to get involved by becoming a member, you can sign up on our website, or if you're looking for a speaking opportunity or to discuss new regeneration schemes, please get in touch with one of the committee. Our event today features 4 speakers. We'll be hearing from Graham Glenn, Head of Acquisitions and Disposals at Surrey County Council, Paul Hogston, Director at Scott Brownrigg, Matt Turner, Senior Development Manager at EcoWorld, and Stephen Clements, Head of Development Partnerships at Raven Housing Trust. They'll each speak for the best part of 20 minutes about their developments and business plans. And then to keep our event engaging, what we've done is we've split it into 2 sections. So we'll hear from 2 speakers followed by a 10-minute Q&A, and then our remaining 2 speakers followed by a final Q&A. So we should be all completely wrapped up by 10:30 for everybody dashing off to meetings. We hope you enjoy listening to our presentations. Our speakers would welcome questions from you. So we've got 2 options for you for how to do this. So firstly, you can send them through during the presentations via the Q&A section on Zoom. If you're directing a question to somebody, I suggest if you put their name first so we can see who they're for. And if you do it this way, I will read out your question for us. The second option is that during the Q&A section, if you're feeling brave, you can put your hand up on Zoom. We will then promote you to speaker, so you'll need to click yes when that comes up as an option for you. We'll then be able to see and hear you, and then you can ask your question directly to the speaker. So 2 options for you there, everybody. So first of all then, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Graham Glenn, Head of Acquisitions and Disposals at Surrey County Council.
Well, a very good morning to everybody. Hopefully I'm about to share my screen and this will work perfectly. Regeneration, a massive topic. I suppose from my point of view, I just thought I'd give a little bit of background on myself. And first an apology, which isn't the best way to start a presentation, but Pete Hopkins, who is the Assistant Director for Commercial, unfortunately couldn't make it this morning. So he press ganged me into doing this presentation for him. He owes me quite a lot, to say the least. Surrey County Council, what is it that we actually manage? Land and Property is a very, very significant landowner across the County Council. The portfolio is just over £2 billion, very similar to some of the larger property companies. And we have roughly 300 service properties, 400 schools, and almost 1,200 non-operational assets, which include a number of vacant sites that we're currently redeveloping for service uses or even for housing. In addition to that, we have a separate investment portfolio with 30 properties in, which cover UK-wide investments. What I'm going to go through today skims the surface of regeneration, and hopefully it aligns with the other speakers after me. Paul, who's going to talk about Farnham, Matt will talk about Woking, and Stephen on Merstham. And each of those topics are covered in the work that Surrey Council are doing. My job is actually quite simple. I'm either buying, building, managing, or selling. And that is the core purpose for this morning's work. And as we take you through some of the topics, I wanted to firstly discuss the Surrey organisational strategy in our community vision, give you an indication of the scale of our capital programmes, and then run you through a number of our key schemes. We'll mention the Housing Infrastructure Fund for two particular projects we're involved with in the A320 in Woking. We'll also review our investment in Brightwells at Farnham, which Paul will discuss later on. Then I want to touch on the Community Projects Fund, which is available to our communities, and then touch on the Green Future strategy, which is underpinning a lot of our wider work. The County Council is no different to many other organisations in having a vision. We have four key priority objectives currently, very much aligned around empowering the communities. The Council has been through a major transformation in the last 2 to 3 years, and I think a number of you will be well aware that we were on a financial cliff edge only 2 or 3 years ago, but there's been a major turnaround as we've been able to improve our people, our processes and our systems. In transforming the Council, those projects shouldn't miss out on the fact that we have a very heavy emphasis on social value and what we can do to improve our various communities. In terms of the scale of our programmes, we are currently running a £1.5 billion 5-year capital programme. This is we're in year one of a 5-year programme, and whilst the current capital programme is being renewed for the current budgets, this is indicative of the sort of capital monies that are being spent at the moment. There's 700 million of new money being spent. In highways, we're spending just over 90 million on improving the highway network. That is in addition to our standard spending on maintenance. In extra care, we're spending the first phase to deliver 725 adapted homes for elderly residents. The cost is 7 million in the first phase, and that will be continuing to increase over the next few phases. And clearly the intent is to try and increase independence and reduce hospital admittance, something that is critical in this COVID period. There is a very high emphasis on our special education needs programme, where we're spending 65 million to provide an additional thousands of places. 3 years ago, we had 2,800 spaces. We're now planning to deliver 5,000 places, which is a massive project for our education colleagues. Within the schools, whilst we do get grant from central government, we're spending an extra 70 million to provide additional school places and make improvements through use of our own funding. I mentioned later on the Greener Future strategy, and one of those has been a major project working on the River Thames scheme with the Environmental Agency, where we are looking to invest 270 million to protect over 30,000 houses and businesses from the risk of flooding. The Community Investment Fund I'll come on to in a minute, and I'll come on to the Greener Futures. The main cases I want to run through this morning are the Housing Infrastructure Fund monies that we've secured for the A320 improvements, the work we're doing with Woking Town Centre, and to outline our direct investment in the Brightwells Yard in Farnham, which we'll have a further presentation on later on. What is the A320 project and what is the Housing Infrastructure Fund? The HIF is a major fund that was available from Homes England, and Surrey County Council and Runnymede Borough Council submitted a bid to improve the A320. This is the road that runs from Chertsey to Ottershaw, and those of you that ever drive down that Guildford Road will know what a leafy lane it is and how it needs substantial improvement. But we secured a £41 million grant, not a loan, from Homes England. The grant is clearly far more beneficial to us than borrowing the money for it. In essence, the plan shows junction 11 of the M25, and whilst this plan doesn't show the full extent of the road from Chertsey down towards Woking, it gives you an idea of the scale of the road improvements that are required to generate what are effectively extra capacity to unlock future housing. That particular scheme will generate and open up almost 3,000 new homes across 10 sites in Runnymede, and that is a key component of the Borough Council's recently approved local plan. Our involvement is to acquire, ahead of any compulsory purchase, some 15 parcels of land, characteristically open land of less than an acre along the road. And this will be acquired ahead of the public inquiry, which is due to take place in early 2022. Similarly, another housing infrastructure fund was submitted with Woking Borough Council. And this is a grant of 95 million, which was awarded to the councils. And Woking have added another 20 million to support their integrated highway project. And there are three key elements to the project. Firstly, the acquisition and demolition of the land that's known as the Triangle site, which is the gyratory system in front of the railway station. The second part is highway widening improvements, which are further extensions of the previous work that I've just described on the Chertsey to Ottershaw link. The picture shows the replacement or the planned replacement of the Victoria Arch Bridge, which has an estimated cost of 65 million. And that is funding that has now been signed up and works are on way. And anyone who knows Woking will know that the Triangle site is now in demolition. The bid and the monies give us the opportunity to support Woking on their town centre policies, identify capacity for additional 3,000 homes within the town centre, something that will be part of Matt's presentation after this. In addition, those monies remove what has been described as the infrastructure deficit that's needed to support community development. And the replacement of Victoria Arch in particular will deliver a new 4-lane carriageway, additional footway capacity, a heightened bridge for buses, and above it, additional railway capacity for the station. And you can see from the photograph the Victoria Square development that's coming out of the ground and nearly completed behind the railway bridge. My third case is Brightwells at Farnham. Whilst Paul will go into detail on the design aspects, this is a project that is for the town centre, a major town centre regeneration, which is delivering 33 commercial units, a mix of retail, restaurants and a 6-screen cinema complex. Chris Nicholson is the strategic delivery company, and they will lease back the residential units. The County Council will be investing and buying the 150-year head lease from the freeholders, Waverley, and will retain the commercial income as part of their investment strategy. The centre is opening hopefully in the summer, and further residential phases will complete in 2022-2023. A third of that scheme has been pre-let to tenants including Marks and Spencer's and Real Cinema. And for those of you who are geographically challenged, this is Farnham Town Centre, and the red line indicates the extent of the land that we're dealing with and acquiring. This is the outline of the scheme, the commercial element of the scheme. As I said, it will deliver 33 retail units. We have Marks and Spencer's setting up a new food hall concept, Real Cinemas, and there's ongoing interest in the scheme despite the COVID markets. On the residential side, we have 239 residential units being built out in various phases. It's 30% affordable, and that is being built and retained by Crest, who will sell on the individual units. Those are the three main projects I wanted to quickly highlight, but I also wanted to give you a heads up on a project fund that is available for local communities. This is a largely member-led £100 million fund that's been set up for projects, capital projects in Surrey. The fund aims to empower our communities, and we're trying to connect residents and community groups to build up ideas and to give them the financial backing, the capital for community-led projects. We need to build resilience and sustainability by helping people help themselves. And whilst this scheme has only just come out, this particular plan shows already a number of schemes where parties are putting together bids ranging from several £1,000s up to several million to bring forward schemes for redevelopment for their own local community. Delivering benefits that match local need and fit with the aims of the community vision is the key for this particular project fund. And whilst it is spread over 5 years, we anticipate somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 bids in the first phase. With these slides, when they're sent out, I'll make sure the link to that fund is made available. And finally, I just want to touch on our greener future, the strategy for Surrey. We've declared a climate emergency, and we're now looking to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Our strategy does include a carbon roadmap for Surrey as part of the county's climate change strategy, and we've already committed £84 million in projects to protect the environment and help tackle the climate emergency that faces us all, whether that's increasing use of solar, whether it's the ultra low emission vehicles, but we're also including a £270 million scheme with the Environmental Agency looking at flood alleviation on the River Thames. This is particularly relevant around the lands in Chertsey, where the county are already looking at acquiring land, which we can convert, which we can transfer to the Environmental Agency for their alleviation scheme, but we can then retain the land and use it for countryside parks and recreational facilities. The strategy is broken down into 8 key sectors, all with the aim of reducing the emissions. From an organisational point of view, we are transitioning our entire estate to a net zero carbon energy estate. And many of you will be aware that we are physically moving from our traditional base at County Hall in Kingston, which isn't in Surrey, back into county. We acquired the Cannon headquarters in Reigate last year, and in the next week we'll be announcing a new acquisition of a further office building, which is an A+ rated on energy. In terms of transport and air quality, we will be continuing to support ultra low emission zones. On housing and planning, we'll be supporting retrofit and working with our borough council colleagues on standards. On waste, we'll be looking very carefully at producer responsibility and increasing education. And on land use, our members have given us a target of planting 1.2 million trees for carbon capture. And this will be part of the lands that we own, together with some of the lands that we'll acquire through the River Thames scheme. And we'll want to work with industry on research and development for green technologies. Very finally, this is an example of some buses that were bought. 9 electric buses serving the park and ride routes around Guildford. They were built by Alexander Dennis, who are based in Guildford, and it provides a zero emission fleet. This is atypical of the part of the action plan and delivery that is taking place within the climate change strategy. Thank you for listening. Stay safe. I'll now pass you back to Rosie.
Thank you very much, Graham. I mean, clearly a lot of initiatives going on there, so I'm sure you're all very busy cracking on with it. So next up then, I'd like to introduce Paul Hogston, Director at Scott Brownrigg. So over to you, please, Paul.
Thank you, Rosie. Just double checking that everyone can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Hi, good morning all. I'm Paul Hogston. I'm Director at Scott Brownrigg, and I'm Sector Lead for Residential and Mixed Use. I've been at Scott Brownrigg, I'm in my 17th year, and I'm actually about to talk about Brightwells Farnham, but I thought I'd just give a brief introduction to Scott Brownrigg for those who aren't aware of us. We've been primarily in Surrey for over 100 years. We currently have 180 staff. We practice across many sectors, but primarily, architecture, master planning, urban design, and interior design. And what I wanted to do is, I always get asked, what are you doing in Surrey? And actually, a wealth of projects over the years that we've been working on are all in the Surrey kind of county. And a couple of these, that's Three Rivers Academy in Walton, and Gartner HQ in Egham, just as an example. We have many sectors: business space, residential mixed use, and this is in Staines, a recent project that's currently on site. Education, rail, aviation, advanced technologies, which is a hugely growing sector for us, with a large amount of data centers that we're currently working on in the UK and across the world. Hospitality, it's the Hard Rock Cafe Hotel in London. Defence and security, and civic and culture. And then so Brightwells. So when I was kindly asked, would I present just before Christmas something, screen's not sharing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, Paul.
Start again. Can you see that?
Yeah, all good.
Oh, good. Okay, hold on. Apologies. Okay, back to the beginning. Okay, so I'll flick through these very quickly. Three Rivers Academy, Gartner in Egham, business space sector that we're involved with, residential mixed use, and that's the recent Barclay scheme that we've designed in Surrey upon Thames, currently on site. The activity centre in Weybridge, St George's Primary School. Rail, heavily involved with rail, aviation, advanced technologies, and then Farnham. So just before Christmas, as I was saying, I was asked, can you talk about Farnham? And Farnham's been going on for so long. It's like, how, what would you like me to talk about? So what I thought I would do is just take you on a bit of a journey of what regeneration meant to myself, my team, and our clients, which fundamentally so far has been a 21-year process, and we're still going, which is an incredible feat. The site, originally, dilapidated buildings, surface car parks, some was privately owned. Originally, there was a 1930s cinema that was demolished in the 80s, and the town hasn't had a proper cinema since. And ironically, through this whole journey, generations have grown up in Farnham without the facilities that I think the town deserved. And the stories throughout the consultation that we had was just unbelievable, where people had grandchildren now that still were waiting for a new cinema that they were promised in the 90s. So unbelievable stories to be told about community and regeneration and townscape and needs of the community. And it's just a few images taken many years ago. And then at the heart of the scheme is Brightwells House, which is a grade 2 Georgian mansion house, grade 2 listed, which you would say was on its last legs in that photo, but hopefully it's going to be the gem of our master plan. It was the core folly within the centre of our concept. So timelines, because regeneration for me, especially with my experience on this scheme, is about time. The scheme development brief was set by Waverley Borough Council in the millennium. who remembers the millennium? It was so long ago. And yeah, I was young then, sadly getting too old now. We actually won the project with Crest Nicholson as a partnership in 2002. I joined the practice in 2004, and after 2 weeks, I was basically asked, told, you're leading this project, which was phenomenal. I was 32, young architect, and really excited about the opportunity. It took us 4 years to gain a consent, so we achieved listed building consent in 2008. We had over 100 presentations and public consultations in that 4-year period. We had a month-long public exhibition to engage with the community, which is just unheard of. Just phenomenal effort that the team and the client team were asked, and I'm quite happy to put in. And then it took a year to resolve the Section 106 until we had full permission. And so when I was asked to do a presentation on Farnham, I thought I'll just dig an old slideshow out. And then I realized that actually it was 13 years ago. That was the last public presentation that we actually did on Farnham, which is, I've grown my family in that period of time, and grown my career. We were then faced with challenges, the banking crisis in 2009, once we got consent, the economic crash, recession. We had CPO process, judicial reviews, we were in the High Courts. We had further challenges, we had viability challenges, and then eventually the project restarted in 2017. We started on site in 2018. And the sort of the mantra is keep going. No matter what, you've just got to keep going, and really, apart from a few slowdowns through this crisis, actually the site's progressing really well. So we're hoping this summer for the first phase to be open, and most of the residential completed in 2022 and some in 2023. Now I believe, if anyone's interested, the apartments go on sale on Saturday, so look out for the sales launch. I think key things for us in terms of regeneration was about having a robust master plan, connecting to the place, embracing the assets, the mature trees, which are listed within the development, the existing listed building, and the character of the place. The scheme itself, which I'll flick through really quickly because Graham highlighted quite a few points, but ultimately it's not a huge scheme. It's about 500,000 square foot of development, 239 new homes, 72 are affordable. Originally we had, and this is how time goes, we had gas-fired CHP as the greenest approach we could come up with 15 years ago. We've now changed and adapted the whole scheme to be an all-electric scheme. Huge amounts of attenuation, green roofs, green walls, and I think the key for this master plan is the pedestrian environment. The whole 11.5 acres, I think it is fully pedestrianised. Providing a truly public space within the heart of Farnham, which hopefully used by the public and residents alike. And yes, it's mixed use, new shops, cinema, gym, cafe, bars, restaurants, new parking. I think the key to this is about flexibility. So all of those units that we designed into the scheme many years ago, they can all be adapted and they're flexible to change use, even if it became office, commercial, and smaller retail. They're all flexible and adaptable, and we made sure that was achievable. And hopefully, the high quality landscape and the setting with the Grade 2 listed building will be, the key assets to make this a successful place. Permeability, connection, you cannot believe how many discussions we had about the impact on the town centre, but how it integrates. And we took every opportunity to integrate to public realm, to local assets, to local footpaths, to wayfinding, the local destinations connecting to the leisure centre, into the town centre as well. So from an urban design perspective, I just love this diagram. It's one of my favorite diagrams for the whole process. Just about how the master plan as a diagram sits within the space and respects its context. So the regeneration of East Street, regeneration is not just about design, although we all like to think it is. It's about placemaking, permeability, the connectivity of a place. These are things that we believe in and that we try to drive into the heart of the scheme. Utilising existing assets, creating flexible, robust master plan, which was key. Although we adapted and changed it several times, the fundamental framework of that master plan was retained probably over a 5-year period, from our concept design all the way through to our planning consent. And fundamentally great landscape realm, and it's designed for the place. So the character, the space, so much was to do with designing this scheme in Farnham and nowhere else, and which I think was sort of critical. But then the other part of regeneration for us is about people. And so you have a design, you have the economics, but actually it's the people that make all of this happen. So as you can see, we started this in 2002 and we're still going, and we still have some of the same team who worked on this scheme in 2002 still working on the scheme today, which is a phenomenal amount of dedication. But you have to have belief. It has to be trust within the team, the client team, the funding, the council, the planning authority, the community, which is a massive challenge. You have to be brave. You have to have commitment, an awful lot of energy, and hard work, drive, ambition. We have to collaborate. We have to do these things together. This is never one person's idea. It's a collaboration of skills, whether it's planning skills, architecture, landscape design, viability, construction. Everyone has to come to the party to make this work. And it's all about having great clients. And along the journey, Brian Ingham at Creston originally, and then Greg followed that, and then Bruce MacArthur followed Greg. Because it's been such a long period of time, you have to have great clients. And our clients on this scheme have just been phenomenally dedicated and supportive throughout the whole process. And then you have to have a great team, which clearly we did, and a lot of patience, and I just thought I'd give you a few images of the scheme for those who aren't aware of it. But it's about creating a vision, creating a character, a place, hopefully beautiful architecture that's in keeping with the surroundings that people want to embrace, want to use, active spaces. At the end of the day, for me as an architect, we don't design buildings for ourselves. We design it for the people who are going to live in it and going to use the space and use the environment. So this has always been about, what we want to give back to the place and the town, and hopefully people will embrace it when it's completed. And we can all sit on the terrace over Brightwell's garden and enjoy a bite to eat and a bit of lunch and a drink and say, actually, this worked out really, really well. And then the place, the setting, the framework, the assets, public realm, public open space at the heart, and again, flexible. So all of this space has the opportunity for open markets, public displays, functions, whatever facilities the local town, local people want to use the space for. And then it's about an identity and a character. And although we originally had a very contemporary scheme, politics and other aspects come into the debate and the discussion, and we embrace that, we adapt, and ultimately we're so driven to provide a high quality scheme, whether it's contemporary, traditional, or a balance of both. Ultimately, it's a place to live. It's about the residents, it's about enjoying the space that we've created, and hopefully the people who live in these buildings and this place and this new part of Farnham will enjoy it as much as we've enjoyed designing it. And after all of that, a vision has to be delivered. There's one thing I hate is leaving schemes on a piece of paper. We're here to hopefully design and build better communities and actually make these things happen. So there's just a few kind of drone shots. Obviously, 13 years ago, we didn't have drones, so technology moves on. But everything we did was sketching and 3Ds and CGI still, but actually to have drone footage would have been helpful. And then just like to show you just for 30 seconds or so, a very quick drone animation, just to give an indication of progress. And this was in November. And so you can see the kind of the commitment and the dedication to the development. That most of the concrete frame is up now. Some of the residential units on the town square are nearing completion, and you know, some of the apartments are going to be on sale from Saturday off plan. But the scheme, once complete, you know, should have that character, should have that connectivity to the place, and hopefully the town will embrace that and enjoy what we try to create for them. And there you can see our 3 listed trees in the centre of the scheme, which have carefully been protected throughout the whole development. And one other challenge, which I've never come across before, we were asked to deliver a construction bridge onto the site to ease traffic in the town centre. So circa a lot of money was spent to provide that access, which has proved brilliant. But I don't know any other site where you have to dedicate a road bridge off a dual carriageway into a site to enable a development to happen. So that was another huge challenge. And then I think, just to sum up, there's always a before and an after, and that was me in 2004. I've got the same haircut, but that's 16, 17 years later, and things do change. But fundamentally, I'd just like to leave you with the thought that ultimately all of this is about a team, and this can't happen without a team. I just take this opportunity, because I haven't presented for, like I said, since 2008 in a public forum about this development. I just like to thank clients and all the consultants of Waverley and Surrey County Council, you know, has collectively worked together to deliver what is a fantastic and hopefully a fantastic scheme for generations to come to enjoy this new place that we've created in Farnham. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. And I have to say, it's lovely to have a local Surrey architect with us today. So I'm going to invite Graham and yourself to stay on so that we can do the Q&A. So I'm going to ask my first question from a Q&A that's been written in, and then we're going to open up to the floor. So if you're feeling brave, please put your hand up and we'll invite you to speak next. So we've had a question from Sean Weston, who is a founding director at a local architect practice. And he has a question for you, please, Graham. What is the target date for Surrey County Council's estate to be net zero carbon? Other councils are targeting 2030.
Yeah, 2050 is the official target. We have a roadmap that's working to 2035. So that is the current roadmap that's within the Greener Future strategy. Clearly, that is a target, and we are currently ahead of target from the emissions that because this started in 2010, but 2035 is the current target in the strategy.
Brilliant, thank you. And do we have anybody who wants to take the floor? We've got plenty of other questions here, so I'll keep going. So question for Paul from Neil Bennyworth at Base Quantum. Paul, this has clearly been a long and complicated scheme. What has been the most significant lessons learned during this extended period of development?
The most significant, again, I hinted a lot in the presentation, it's about people. So the continuity of a team is essential. When something goes on for so long, it's really, really challenging to meet that. But you have to have someone who, is a little bit like a dog on a bone. You've just got to have someone who's stubborn at the front, who won't give up and has to keep going. And I think the dedication of individuals is key. Yes, a lot of consultation, but I think one thing I would take from public consultation is it has to be a two-way process. We didn't do anything that a brief wasn't set for. But what it is about both sides engaging, because there's always people who don't want things to happen. But actually, if you engage in a proactive way, this is what I always said, we will take that on board and we can adapt. And so I would always encourage people to join the conversation and not be against the conversation. That's the most critical thing. Be proactive in your views, and then these things will happen. Unfortunately, this will have taken a quarter of a century to come to fruition, which is just phenomenal.
Cool. That actually leads me on to my next question. So, Graham, how can the community and the wider construction industry help support a further generation in Surrey?
I think it's talking. I mean, this is part of the community project opportunity we've got in trying to sort of connect residents and communities to build ideas. I think I'll probably be highly critical of the public sector now, but I've worked in West Sussex, East Sussex and Surrey. And historically, there's always been an apparent sort of gap between the communities and their county councils and even some of their district and borough councils. I think the important thing is to empower communities to talk and bring ideas forward. And I think the member fund that's been set up is a good example of the opportunities that are there. One of the particular projects I know is coming through is a small listed building that a local community group wants to regenerate, but they don't have the capital. They'll probably have the revenue to run it, they don't have the capital to buy it. And this is hopefully a fund that will support them in that sort of work.
Lovely, thank you. Paul, is the dedicated road bridge due to remain once construction of the development has been completed?
No. So it's always been the intention to remove the road bridge, reinstate the landscape bank against the A30. Sorry, the A23, is it? I can't remember now. But we will be, within the planning application, we did put a footbridge, cycle bridge across to create that connection. Because the important thing is to connect both sides of the river and obviously the walk up to the station. So that's always been the intention. So the existing bridge will be dismantled and removed, and a new footbridge installed.
And people are quite intrigued by the bridge, Paul. I've got another question. Was it required for congestion or environmental reasons?
For both, really. So congestion for the town, most definitely, but also air quality was a big driver, because Farnham is a bit of a bottleneck, and so and obviously not at the moment, obviously, but generally there has some really poor air quality areas in the town centre because of car vehicle and standing vehicles. So in essence, it's been fantastic for the town for the road bridge to be installed. A big challenge, but definitely a congestion and a pollution kind of decision rather than environmental.
Lovely, thank you. Question from Luke Nightingale, which I'm not sure who it's addressed to, so either of you can answer. Will there be a rollout of electric vehicle charging points to coincide with the push to use lower emission vehicles?
The straight answer is yes to that. That is part of the target and the work that we'll be doing with our 11 district and borough authorities. The Greener Future strategy is a collaborative strategy across both the county and the district and borough councils, and that is one of the main opportunities that's been looked at from a transport point of view.
Brilliant, thank you. Paul, question from Ian Tomes at Woking Borough Council. Paul, isn't the risk with such a protracted delivery that the world changes and the assumptions about what is needed to get overtaken? How confident are you, for example, that the retail will be fully let and not stand empty?
I'd probably answer that one, Paul, didn't I?
Go for it. I'm not a retail agent, but yeah,
I think from a commercial investment point of view, Surrey County Council, as I said, the freehold of that scheme is owned by Waverley. County Council are buying the commercial income as an investment, as part of their investment portfolio. It's, without giving too much away, we anticipated generating about 3 million a year. That's the sort of scale of income that you generate for a scheme of this nature. Are we confident about it? We have a third of it pre-let. We have 2 others that are currently under discussion. We've got a couple of other negotiations in hand. Will COVID impact? Inevitably it will do. You know, we are in a very interesting retail market, and we have actually even looked at some of the opportunities for some of the space if we think maybe we need to convert it into different uses. There has been a change in the planning use classes, as we're all aware. That probably gives us a wider opportunity from moving away from some pure retail, if that's the opportunity. But that's clearly something we need to discuss with Waverley. But work in progress, and let's get COVID out of the way.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Graham, I think this is another question for you, please. Does regeneration look different in different parts of the county?
Does it look different in different parts of the county? No, I don't think it does. I think there are certain pockets of activity. Take, Farnham's clearly a good example, and I suppose we have a habit of highlighting the bigger projects, but there's a lot of smaller projects going on, and I hope the member fund map that I just showed, which is online, I can get people links to it. It's actually quite interesting to look at the background behind some of those projects, because they are right across the county. They're not just centric to one particular town or locality. Some of them are village based. They literally are regeneration projects in villages, and there may be developing a community centre for a local village. It's a different scale, but the same principles apply.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Rosie, I'd also add that I think our architectural approach in different parts of Surrey has more flexibility and more openness, and there are different opportunities depending the context that you're working within. And some places are more challenging than others. So, every site's different, and every scheme deserves a fresh set of eyes and a different approach.
Yes, indeed.
I think it's probably worth adding that, given Matt's going to comment on some of the planning issues, there are planning challenges in some of the lands that we have. That's reality of life. It's a very green belted county, and we have to manage the planning policy. Whether it's a county council applying to their own planning committee, which can be as stressful as any third party applying to their local borough. So we're all in it together. Yeah,
absolutely. On that note, is there any news on whether Surrey County Council will become a unitary authority? And if so, how do you
answer? Straight. No, it was a published idea. I think Tim Oliver, our current leader, did challenge that, did pursue that. I think there's always been an ongoing debate. I am relatively, I have to admit, I'm relatively new to Surrey County Council, particularly with regard to this role, although I have been working with them for the last sort of 4 or 5 years. At the moment, I don't think it's top of the radar for people's agendas. We have local elections in May, unless they're changed. Whether there'll be any change in the politics within Surrey, I suspect it's probably still on the bluer side of the fence. But as we find in local district and boroughs, there is a lot of change going on.
Lovely. Right, I'm going to ask my final question now. Graham, I think this is one for you, please. Has it been a difficult process for people to be able to access the HIF to enable further development in Surrey, which has primarily a significant amount of green belt?
Yes, it is. I think the bidding process, I think we're all in a world where we are having to bid for funds. Having the evidence base available is clearly the key for us. and working with our district and borough councils, where we are providing evidence and putting evidence to support a lot of the Green Book sort of requirements that Treasury look at now are very complex, and it's a very specialist field. I don't admit to being directly involved in that. It's, my economic development colleagues, but we do provide the evidence. And I think what we're trying to provide is the practical input into those schemes to deliver the outcomes that are sought. And I think the examples in Woking are probably a very good example of our ability to tap into what are major funds that are central government controlled to support infrastructure development.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you very much to Paul and Graham for some brilliant presentations there and for answering all of your brilliant questions. I'd now like to introduce our speaker, Matt Turner, Senior Development Manager at EcoWorld. So over to you, please, Matt.
Yes, hi everyone. My name's Matt Turner and I'm the Senior Development Manager at EcoWorld. I am going to talk to you today about our scheme in Woking, which is called Goldsworth Road. So I mean, really today I wanted to run through with you, I suppose, the planning process for a regeneration scheme with particular focus on how we engage with local businesses and supply chain and community and the opportunities that might present for you. Firstly, I just wanted to note who EcoWorld are. So in 2018, EcoWorld acquired a 70% stake in Wilmot Dixon's residential portfolio, Prime Place, creating EcoWorld London. And we've got around 12 development sites in Greater London and the South East. And currently, we're kind of growing our business exponentially. And we've got a development pipeline of about 6,000 residential units and several sort of significant financial deals under our belt. We've also launched a build to rent brand called APO, which means a part of. And really, I wanted to set out why we are a regeneration focused developer. So almost all of our sites are sort of large scale, multi-phased regeneration projects. And for example, on the screen, you can see there, that's 9 Elms, so Embassy Gardens, which included the American Embassy and a lot of residential units. We have London City Island, which is here. That's about 1,500 units. It's also the new headquarters of the English National Ballet. And then here we have Kew Bridge Gate, which is again around a sort of 1,000 units and a new football stadium for Brentford Football Club. And there's various other projects that we have in sort of Canning Town, Barking, and Woking, which are examples of this kind of large scale regeneration projects. And so I wanted to say that an EcoWorld project is slightly different in its focus from sort of your standard sort of standalone development projects. In the first instance, we try and establish partnerships in their truest form. So I mentioned a few schemes there. They all have partnerships with them. So for example, the Brentford Community Trust, Canning Town, we're partnered with a registered provider called Popular Harker. At Woking, we partnered up with the York Road Project, who are a homeless shelter. And that's because regeneration is different. You have to form these kind of long-term partnerships and you have to provide significant benefits to the community in the existing place. I'm going to touch on those later on in this presentation, specifically in relation to supply chain and businesses. And really at EcoWorld, because we are experts, I think, in large-scale projects, we also take a long-term approach to those projects. So we commit to make great places for people to live, as well as creating vibrant environments that enhance the lives of our residents, I suppose, and the wider local communities that we're a part of. We always think that if developments are to thrive and flourish for years to come, then the surrounding area needs to thrive and flourish too. So we don't want to create an island, I suppose. We want to create places where everyone's welcome and everyone's well-being is considered, so they're truly sustainable communities. And we're not looking for short-term gain, I suppose. We're investors in the community, and that means we want to become part of that. And then finally, with all of our schemes, we don't leave when the building work finishes. We stay involved, ensuring that growth and communities thrive. So it's much more about sort of more than the buildings, more than the bricks and mortar. It's about sort of the people. So onto the site. This is the scheme in Woking. We're approximately about 0.9 of a hectare, so 2.3 acres. The site there in more detail is split by Goldsworth Road, so a main road. And we've got sort of 8 Church Street West here, and then these are sort of existing office buildings, and as are these along Goldsworth Road. And down here, all of the different colours you see are really just to give you an indication of the difficulty with regeneration and land assembly. You know, we had a number of different landowners here. We had a JV partner to start with. We had about 10 to 15 different registered titles. We had a number of historic conveyances and restrictive covenants on all of those titles. And therefore we had to enter into legal agreements with Network Rail to release their rights, legal agreements with existing owners. So here is the Woking Railway Athletic Club. Here is the York Road project. So we had to enter into agreements with those. The York Road project is the homeless charity. And then we had to get a number of indemnity insurances on the land. So that's, I mean, that's all before we even start sort of any design work. And then really I wanted to explain why we considered Woking. Whenever we're considering a development site, we look at, we undertake, I suppose, extensive research into the opportunities that place offers. And in particular, Woking offers a huge amount of opportunity. There is connectivity. So I think public transport is kind of key to Woking's attraction to residents, businesses, commuters alike. You know, the fastest journey time from Woking train station to London takes about 24 minutes. You've got close proximity to the M3 and the M25, and as well as proximity to airports. As Graham was alluding to, there's a lot of infrastructure investment in Woking at the moment. So the Housing Infrastructure Fund is improving. If I just go back up, sorry, that is Victoria Arch there. So that's the tunnel that's being widened. I think that's the only sort of access point into Woking for 1.5 kilometres on either side. So it's quite a sort of like, you know, it's quite a gateway into Woking. You know, infrastructure investments. The station, I think, is planned to have another platform and increase journey times into London. And then the Housing Infrastructure Fund is also facilitating you know, all of this sort of future development pipeline of about sort of 3,000 residential units within the town centre. The other opportunities in Woking really are affordability as well. You know, it's cheaper than, for example, London, where we do a lot of our schemes. There's growth. So that kind of heady mix for us of infrastructure investment, affordability and connectivity really sort of screams opportunity for us as a developer. The other thing is that Woking has got a high concentration of good businesses and knowledge-based businesses. You know, they've got strong IT and software development sectors. There's finance, and there's lots of major companies in there, and that always helps when we're looking at development sites. And they've got a good cultural proposition. You know, Woking has an annual programme of free events within its town centre, and reportedly attracts about 200,000 visitors to the town every year. So that's the other thing that we look at when we're trying to sort of create a new place. And the council was very supportive as well, which helped. So that, I mean, this is the stuff that Graham touched on. That's really just some of the housing infrastructure, the road widening works which are happening in Woking. And then this is sort of a list of the potential development sites that is going to unlock. So that's us down there in yellow. So following that, as part of the regeneration, we assemble the team, and you know, below is just a sort of list of the professional team that we've assembled, and then we start the planning process. And for us, the planning process on this scheme has taken just over 2 years from concept to determination. That's involved a huge amount of sort of research, design, technical due diligence, consultation. For example, we've had sort of about 7 pre-application meetings with Woking Council. And that's included the Green Infrastructure team, Surrey Highways, the Town Centre Development team. We've held 3 design review panel meetings. So Woking engaged with an independent panel to review and assess the suitability of our design, and also because we're proposing tall buildings, the height. And then along down here, we consult. So we hold a lot of meetings with sort of key statutory consultees as well as the public, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. And then we start building up a design narrative around the scheme. So we start looking at, before we start designing anything, we look at what the narrative is behind this. What's the story behind the scheme? And with this scheme, we try to develop sort of a clear project vision, which is a set of principles which has informed the design of the place. It takes into account the target market, which is identified, and those kind of things. So we looked at, originally, we looked at how Woking is growing and responding to population growth and housing need. And that they've actually had a conversation at the council to say, and consulted with their residents about whether they wanted sort of green space, the green belt to be developed on, or instead, if that was to be protected, then town centre density. And that is the route that we chose. We then looked at how we could connect into the existing town centre, and Woking Town Centre have got their Woking Council have got their own development called Victoria Square. How we then connect with that as well. So that just really shows how we think we can link into the town centre and the importance of our place in the town centre. And so again, a little bit more how we complement the existing town centre offering, and how we create our own identity as well, because we started to feel that to create a place, to create the development here, we wanted a mixed use scheme, i.e. with residential and commercial units, which is here. So as it says there, this kind of monocultural offer, which which drives people to the place as well, which creates that kind of ground floor vibrancy and energy. In our development, it's having that kind of retail and commercial at ground floor, and it also provides our residents with convenience. We need to tailor that sort of ground floor offer to give what our residents need sort of in every day. So groceries, dry cleaning, GP surgeries, and that kind of stuff. And then we thought we also wanted to create the place. We wanted to encourage people to visit our scheme, and the commercial space does that in some ways. We also wanted people to kind of dwell there and spend time there, to give this kind of ground floor energy, I suppose. So we almost want people to live there, work there, play there, dwell there, and that's when we thought actually we want to create some new public realm. And then specifically, when we had a look at Woking, the town centre, there's a lot of hard public spaces, and there's no real sort of green space. So we decided that we wanted to create a new green public open space for Woking town centre, and that then became kind of the heart of the site. So we've got this kind of recognisable and memorable place from the public realm, and that this green space is going to create this identity. And actually, it created a nice sort of contrast to the town centre and Victoria Square, which is all hard, as I just said. So then we started developing the scheme, and we wanted to develop tall buildings. So I think we originally started off with a brief of about circa 1,000 residential units. So we obviously needed density in the town centre, and we spent a lot of time trying to work out how we could design tall buildings while being cognizant of what's there already. So Victoria Square, but also stepping down to sort of the residential elements to the west of the site. And then this is our scheme here. This is really just to show you how that is considered. So we looked at all of these. This is our site here. We looked at all of these other tall buildings within Woking and how actually we could get a narrative and a design which complemented those. And then once we had a sort of scheme in principle, we went out and consulted with everyone. And I think it's really important to recognise what consultation does. You know, that if we want to create a community and ensure the new neighbourhood that we're creating is genuine and credible, then we need links to Woking, we need public buy-in, we need links to Woking's heritage, and we need sort of credibility with the public and local businesses and bodies. So we did 2 rounds of public consultation, which was advertised to about 2,500 residents and businesses in Woking. Created a project website. We held public exhibitions. We held virtual exhibitions during COVID, online Q&A events. We held meetings with councillors who represent their constituents, the residents of Woking. You know, they were really keen to ensure that locals were put first, and that we were committed to Woking and its residents, rather than just developing what I mentioned earlier, this kind of island type development, which isn't integrated or connected. And that meant we had to engage with local stakeholders and action groups. And in relation to sort of supply chain and businesses, we met and engaged with sort of Woking Works, We Are Woking, Celebrate Woking, the Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of local businesses. And I think it was important for us to outline the opportunity for local spend throughout the process of development, from sort of the construction works, where we use local labour, local materials, to the final scheme development. You know, there's an opportunity for everyone. And in the final scheme, we were keen to note, and this is kind of why we met with Celebrate Woking, I suppose, is that there's an opportunity to create a recognised place by providing events and activities which engage with the local community and new as well as new residents. So, you know, Woking already has town centre annual events such as Summer Sounds Festival, the Food Festival, the Party in the Park, many more. And we discussed with Woking at length how we could extend those into our public realm that we're proposing. Because that would also establish our scheme as sort of a valuable addition to Woking and create an attractive proposition to new residents as well as existing. So it meets both of our needs, I suppose, as the existing and the new. And you know, as I said, initial meetings were undertaken to develop that opportunity. So I expect you've all been waiting to see what their final scheme looks like. So this is the final scheme. So we have 929 residential units, so including on-site affordable housing, family homes, and all of those are a mix of sizes. All of the units were designed to national spatial standards and had access to excellent private and communal external amenity space, as well as internal amenity space. This is Goldsworth Road, which we had agreement with Surrey Highways and the council. Very early on, they recognised the opportunity in closing that permanently and pedestrianising it. There's about 4,500 square metres of new public realm, which is costing us sort of over £2 million, and that's going to be open and accessible to everyone within Woking, and it kind of provides this pedestrian-friendly link into the town centre, and it offers that place for people, as I said earlier, to dwell, you know, to work at these sort of ground floor commercial units, to play. We've got some integrated play space. You know, to create that kind of vibrancy which really enlivens and activates a place, or activates a development. We're providing a new home for the York Road project, which is the homeless shelter. They're very well supported within Woking as a charity, and it's been very eye-opening working with them. You know, when we've designed their new sort of bespoke facility which provides accommodation and support for everyone experiencing homelessness in Woking, and it was in collaboration with them. The Woking Railway Athletic Club have a new facility here, and you know, we've worked with them to design a bespoke facility that meets their requirements. And then finally we've got sort of the flexible commercial unit. So all of this ground floor here and here, which open out onto the public space, will be new commercial units for local businesses, and we have plans to incentivise sort of smaller local SMEs to take those premises, and our plans will, I suppose, will increase footfall and trade in that part of the town centre, which is my opinion, probably currently underused and in need of improvement. And at planning stage, we always try and design these spaces to be as flexible as possible. to appeal to a variety of local businesses who may be interested in taking the space. But as I said earlier, we've engaged with neighbouring businesses to discuss, the practical implications of what they need. So that is the scheme. Sorry, I should mention the height. So we are 37 stories at our tallest in Tower T3. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks, which range really from sort of 12 stories here up to 37 stories here. And then these are the scheme benefits, and this demonstrates really the benefits that regeneration brings to a town like Woking. But in relation to sort of supply chain, I wanted to focus on sort of this section here, the economic, and the construction jobs and the local spend that regeneration brings. And I'll give you an example from one of our projects where we've got quite a strong track record. So down at Barking, which is East London, we're developing 2 sites opposite each other. One which has about 540 units, and the other has 1,800 units. The 540 unit scheme. To date, we've employed a total of 640 people employed on the site who live in the London borough of Barking and Dagenham. We've supported them, their job shop and Job Centre Plus through specific careers fairs held on site. And that's resulted in direct employment of sort of 8 local people on the day. We've had stalls at sort of local at their Barking's construction jobs fairs, which again resulted in a further 4 people being directly employed. We've engaged with the local colleges to provide full-time apprenticeships. We've got 7 full-time apprenticeships on site at the moment, which is directly via Barking and Dagenham's college. And then we provide work experience for people within Barking and Dagenham. So we're proposing to do all of the same things in Woking. The other thing is kind of local expenditure and local partnerships. And again, as I said before, we're extremely keen on creating partnerships, whether that's with supply chain or whether with community. But again, I'll give you an example from our Kew Bridge project. We came on board as the principal partner of Brentford Football Club. And we joined forces with Brentford Football Club Community Sports Trust, and that was with the aim of this sort of creating sustainable improvements in local facilities and active opportunities for people in the surrounding communities. And then, as I said before, there's going to be opportunities for local SMEs to lease new commercial spaces with incentivised offer. And again, we've got an example of another project in Canning Town, where we collaborated with a company called High Street Works to deliver a new business development scheme called Start Here, and that's transformed a street called Aberfeldy Street. It was featured on the ITV News a couple of months ago, and that's just to ensure that the local high street remains a vibrant community, social and commercial hub, and alongside the extensive physical street improvement works. The programme also provided business support to all existing and new businesses on the street and retail units, and the new retail units were provided rent-free during the first year of the tenancy. And then you can just see sort of the other investment that we make in when we regenerate an area. So you can see that we are contributing to the Housing Infrastructure Fund works of just shy of £2 million. We've got circa sort of £10 million worth of SIL payments, which is community infrastructure levy, and that is spent by the council on sort of education, wealth, education, healthcare, all of those kind of improvements in the council. We're providing all of this public realm for the community. So so there's a huge amount of benefit that we provide to the local community. That's really a kind of just summary of what I've just mentioned. So really just to finish off then is just to run through just some of the CGIs. So this is looking down Goldsworth Road, the new pedestrianised area, and then these are the new residential blocks, and then you can see these are all the commercial units. Again, that's looking sort of straight down Goldsworth Road from Victoria Way down into our development. So that's the block on the right. That's one of the residential main entrances. And really just, one of the design features is that we took the car parking off ground floor level and put it up above, and that's allowed us to activate the ground floor with all of these commercial units. It's just a nighttime shot. So there's the podium gardens with some of the residential amenity. Again, that's residential amenity up at the sort of podium level. That's down at the ground floor level, so the green street, and you can see some of these kind of integrated play areas. That's looking at one of the residential entrances again. Again, one of the residential entrances. And then, I just wanted to finish on sort of on the landscaping and the and the pedestrianisation and the greening of that street. And yeah, just to really reiterate that I suppose regeneration for us is as I said earlier, it's not just about the buildings. It's about the engagement with the local community, and it's about becoming part of the local community, and it's about extolling the virtues of what regeneration can bring to a town centre or bring to a community. We know that regeneration can be big and long in terms of timescales, and there are going to be disruption, but the end benefits are very much worth it. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks, Matt. I really like the long-term approach that EcoWorld take to their projects and how you really link to the place that you're developing in. It's great to hear about the tangible benefits that the regeneration of this project would bring. And I should acknowledge as well that EcoWorld and Wilmot Dixon are sister companies, and we've worked together on several successful projects. So next up, I would like to introduce Stephen Clements, Head of Development Partnerships at Raven Housing Trust. Here you go, Stephen.
Thank you, Rosie. All right, let's make this work. Right, thanks everyone, welcome, and thanks for letting me talk to you today about Raven and our plans for regeneration. My name is Stephen Clements. I'm Head of Development Partnerships at Raven. Main focus of my role is around identifying and managing our own assets and renewal and regeneration projects, as well as looking at partnership opportunities with local authorities and developers. So who are Raven? For those of you who are not aware, Raven Housing Trust are based in Redhill. We were formed in 2002 from the land and stock transfer from Reigate and Banstead Council. We currently manage around 6,000 homes around Surrey and Sussex, from Tadworth, Sutton and Epsom in the north to Burgess Hill and Billingshurst in the south. We're an actively developing housing association across a range of tenures, including private sales via our Raven Homes brand, and shared ownership, affordable rent and social rent via the trust. Historically, we've worked on a number of small to medium scale development projects before taking advantage of various Section 106 opportunities from about 2014 onwards. This has helped to boost our numbers significantly with the addition of about 800 homes to our stock. But we've also learned that these homes don't always meet the high quality standards we expect from projects that we've delivered ourselves. Talk to you a little bit now about Merstham, which is a town village in our within our borough. One of our largest estates lies in Merstham. The majority of our stock is post-war build, and as with a large number of estates of this kind, parts have become outdated and no longer suitable for the people living there. Compared with other estates, it also has a very high proportion of rented homes, was identified as one of the most deprived areas in Surrey. Raven have worked with the local authority to agree a strategic plan to help revive the area and make it more appealing to the community it served. This has taken several forms, including the redevelopment of a number of garage and parking sites to provide brand new homes, but with a stronger emphasis on home ownership through shared ownership to help improve the mix of tenures in the area. This helped both local residents and people from outside the area to get a foot on the housing ladder. Parking is always contentious, and this was included in the plan to try and reduce the amount of street parking, although, as is often the case, cars continue to breed. Raven continues to work with the local authority on this and other estates to help ease the ongoing issues. A major part of the regeneration came in the form of redesigning the shopping and community areas. The original parade of shops sat along Portland Drive with a large number of unsuitable flats above. Reigate and Bounstead Borough Council constructed new shops and a community hub, including a library, youth centre and community cafe at the end of the street, formed in a triangle on the former Iron Horse pub site. This area is now complete with all the shops occupied, some from the former shops around along Portland Drive. Raven's part of the development is called Burstone Gardens, offering a collection of 50 homes made up of 1 and 2 bed apartments and 2 and 3 bed homes. These are all for private sale, again helping to improve the tenure mix of the area, but also helping us generate a surplus that we can use to provide more affordable housing in all the areas that we work. If any of you are familiar with Merstham but haven't been there for a few years, then I'd recommend having a drive through the centre to see the changes that have happened. And looking to the future, we've identified quite a few small projects in Merstham, all offering a range of different tenures and contributing to the continued regeneration of the area. We've completed other small scale projects from about 2 to 40 homes, mainly where buildings are no longer fit for purpose, such as our Ramore House development. This was in Redhill. We did this with Westridge. We re-provided 34 apartments and houses targeted at the over 55s, which in turn helped to free up a number of our larger homes for growing families in need. There's also our Hillary House scheme, which saw a locally historic building, which was originally a maternity hospital, and then took on a number of uses over the decades, including sheltered and temporary accommodation. It's now been beautifully restored to give a terrace of 3 homes for shared ownership, and now all occupied by the residents. So what are our plans going forward? As I'm sure you're all aware and has been mentioned in other presentations, the government brought in a target to reduce the UK's net emissions of greenhouse gases by 100% by 2050. For most of us, that sounds like a long time, but when you have about 6,000 homes, it really isn't. Our current stock needs to be addressed. So how do we balance regenerating our own stock against building new homes? Do we stop building anything new? What does it mean for our development and asset strategies? So we're still committed to building new affordable homes, but only if they're delivered as net zero carbon. We see no benefit to us not meeting this aim if we're just going to have to build the retrofit cost into the new build for 10, 15 years time. Why wait if we know what we need to do now? So all our homes will be net zero carbon, with the caveat that we haven't actually built any as yet, but we have a number of projects in various stages of design and planning. We'll aim for a fabric first approach with an emphasis on off-site construction, as we feel we'll get more robust quality assurance and more certainty around timescales and cost when homes are built in a factory setting. It also lends itself well to BIM, which feeds into our desire to be more digitally advanced. We want to build low emission homes, minimising heating demand by incorporating triple glazing, near zero thermal bridging, MVHR, zoned heating, and whole again through orientation. Most of our sites will hopefully allow for ground source heat pumps, although we'll look at alternatives where necessary. There are other challenges, of course, such as building safety, and all this puts a lot of demands on our finances, and it's a challenging conversation we have with our boards and residents. So, as I said, Raven has taken this challenge seriously, and we're one of the early adopters. We've already started the work to audit our existing homes, which has helped us to formulate new asset and development strategies. We worked with a firm of specialist consultants to assess our homes using a range of data, including net present value, projected whole life works or repair spend, the SAP rating, along with other criteria such as size and affordability of home to the residents. Is the design or layout still fit for purpose, and the desirability or how easy the property was to let. The graph shows you how our stock is broken down in terms of number of homes in each cost bracket. We then look at how the homes cluster by type and what works are required. We have a reasonable number of relatively new homes that require a small amount of work to bring them up to standard. There's a large chunk in the middle that makes up the majority of our homes, with an estimated retrofit cost of about £15,000 to £30,000. This will be a fabric first approach, looking to improve insulation and ventilation, then a heating upgrade later. We've estimated an overall cost of about £115 million for this retrofit work, but this figure changes depending on the speed of technology, levels of grants and other factors. Then we have the high cost properties. These will either need a whole house retrofit, such as the Energy Sprong model, or we'll look to demolish or regenerate or dispose of them. So our future regeneration plans will mainly be driven by the outputs from our asset net zero carbon project. What are our next steps? So we've already completed our first sift of properties from this review. We've identified a number of areas, blocks and streets on our estates that are ripe for regeneration. As I'm sure you can imagine, these range in size and complexity, from small blocks where we have full control of all the homes within it, to larger, much more complex schemes where we have a mix of commercial and residential, as well as a range of tenures from rented, sheltered and leaseholders. We plan to map these out over a programme that will last up to about 30 years. We've got a few quick wins that we can start working on straight away, but yes, come back in a couple of years and see how we get on. So what do we want to achieve? We believe that having a good quality, affordable home makes a huge difference to people's lives, and that creating social value is an important part of our work. We want our regeneration work to create communities where people want to live, meet modern standards of living, are sustainable and are future-proof as much as we can predict, and affordable both in terms of rental and running costs. What we're planning will have a big impact on our customers, but will have a huge benefit to them in terms of quality of their homes and their lives. That is it from me. Relatively swift, but you can probably wake up now and see that our focus is about net zero carbon, and that is what the generator for our regeneration in the future. So I'll now pass back to Rosie. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. That was great, short and sweet, which actually is what we like. And I'd like to invite Matt Turner back up, please, for our Q&A. So we've had a lot of questions come in. If anybody is feeling brave and would like to come on the screen to ask your question, then you know you just need to raise your hand, please, and we'll get you on. Right, so first of all, I've got a question from Ian Tomes at Woking for Matt, please. What next after the recent planning committee decision?
Yes, yeah, it's not the greatest of timing. I haven't come here because we actually got refused at planning committee on the last Tuesday, and that was against officer recommendation for approval. So currently we're awaiting the decision notice to see the sort of final confirmed reasons for refusal and the policy context behind them. And then really we've got sort of three options. Either we walk away completely, but we've invested quite heavily in land assembly and the planning application, so that's unlikely. Or we appeal the decision, which is the legal route, or we make some tweaks and resubmit. So so it's going to be one of the latter two.
Thank you. Stephen, how does sustainability fit in with Raven, and does it have a role to play?
Yes, so that is a major factor in obviously our net zero carbon target. we'd love to do it earlier than 2050, and we will if we can, but once we tried to do it too quickly, it broke the financial model, so we have to do it probably over the course of 30 years. But yeah, no, it's very important that we talk to our residents about sustainability and make sure that what we build now is there for a long time. We don't want to be having to change what we do in 10, 15, 20 years time. So yes, it's very important, but that is an ongoing conversation. What we build now we'll get constant feedback, so it may change over, in 10 years time. What we build may be slightly different, but we will do what we feel is the best thing at the time.
Brilliant. And we've had a question from Paul Harding at Bridge & Partners. Matt, how do you see your future and current developments changing to reflect the impacts of COVID and the need for people to access external space?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question, because I mean, at Woking, I thought we were slightly ahead of the curve, if you like. So we were already designing a place which, and as most of our developments do, with access to sort of functional green space as well as functional amenity space. And as you say, the current lockdown situation has I suppose really emphasised the importance of that, and highlighted how pressurised green space is within urban areas, which is why we've brought forward this new public realm as part of our scheme. And then being sort of coming from Eco World, the eco part it's about sort of sustainability and creating sustainable communities and health and well-being. So within the amenity space for our residents, we always ensure that all residents have quite a large private external amenity space. They have sufficient space within their development to work from home. I mean, that comes from sort of the old home office provision under Code for Sustainable Homes, which I think everyone generally keeps to. And then the residential amenity space, we've given over sort of a whole floor plate to that. So there is, and they are sort of segregated within our scheme between, I suppose, what you would call kind of active amenity space, such as gyms, outdoor exercise space, to much quieter space. So we've got sort of a mindfulness pods and sensory gardens, and then to sort of socialising and downtime. So we have some rooftop amenities which are sort of kitchens or private hire space which we can use. So yeah, I think we were already meeting those requirements, but COVID really reinforced the importance of all of those items.
Brilliant. Another question for you, Matt. A question from Carol Bell, who's one of the senior development managers at Surrey County Council. Hi, Matt. How did you address the risks and issues raised by the change in fire safety regulations for tall buildings over 15 stories following the Grenfell Tower fire?
Yeah, sure. This actually came up in the planning committee as well, which was fire. Obviously, we have to comply with building regulations, so we engage with a fire specialist at an early stage to offer us advice on how we meet latest guidance and best practice and regulations. So that's been incorporated into the building. And then during the planning process, we actually met with Woking Fire Brigade, who are one of our neighbours on the site, as well as Surrey Fire Brigade, and ran through the provisions. But yeah, currently all of the buildings are sprinkler 2-hour fire rated. And yes, we have before we go to planning, we make sure we have a full fire strategy which backs up all of those provisions, that they're compliant with current guidance regs.
Stephen, the use of off-site manufacturing and modern methods of construction has many benefits. How do you see this working with the local SMEs who many struggle to do this?
Yeah, so I'm not saying we're completely shutting the door to traditional construction. That will still happen depending on the site. If access, or for whatever reason we can't do MMC, then we will look at traditional build. But I'd encourage people to talk to us about it. So I've already spoken, for example, to Westridge. We've had a chat about it, and it's kind of embracing it. It's looking to the future and seeing, not all sometimes you need a main contractor who's doing a lot of the works around the MMC, so that there's all kinds of different opportunities. So I would encourage people to look into it and talk to us about it, and it's a learning curve for us, so it's really early days for us. We're always learning all the time, and so any help with anything or anyone who wants to discuss anything, then we're more than happy to do that.
That's brilliant. We've had a subsequent question on that as well whilst you've been speaking, Stephen. Are you currently partnering with any particular suppliers on modern methods of construction or off-site construction?
No, not as yet. We've got 2 projects at the moment that we're just about to go out to tender to, and that's just been done by a dynamic procurement process. So we've selected some suppliers within that, but it's also there were some standard suppliers in that list as well. But moving forward, we're part of Building Better, which is supported by the National Housing Federation, and that's kind of an alliance of housing associations working together to realise the benefits of off-site construction. I'm sure my director would happily come and talk to you about that at some point, because she's a board member of that as well. But yeah, so look into that side of things as well. But that's going to create a procurement framework in the future. So.
Okay, and we had a question from Doug Taylor Johnson at Sunning Hill for Matt Turner. And he's asked a question which I know we were asked a lot as well at Wilmot Dixon. It's all about, I'll ask you the question and you can say how you take it. Can you please explain the details of how the proposed 140 permanent job places have been calculated resultant from the Goldsworth project?
God, yeah. Yes, I can try. I mean, simply for us is we have to do, as part of the planning application, we have to do what's called an environmental impact assessment. So that assesses all of the impacts of the project, whether that's townscape, daylight, sunlight, wind, for example. And one of those is socio-economic. So we actually engage with a consultant who does those calculations for us, which is a bit of a cop-out actually of an answer, but I'm not 100% sure on the exact calculation method, but it's done through I suppose an approved route or calculation method for planning purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you see, either of you could answer this, as the challenges and blockers to further regeneration in Surrey from your organisation's perspective?
Money. No, that's one of the things. So we for example, we prefer to do socially rented properties as opposed to affordable rent. The difference, for those who don't know, affordable rent isn't always particularly affordable, and so social rent offers a much better product for a wider range of people. But because it's lower rent, it generates less income, therefore it's more costly to build. And so that's about continuous grant and having certainty around grant going forward. So that is a big issue for us.
Okay, great. Matt, same question.
Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, viability is always tough. Is trying to deliver sort of the quantum of housing or residential homes that we need to meet our targets, but also providing everything that we want to the community. So getting that balance exactly right is always very difficult. And then, in some cases, kind of bureaucracy and sort of red tape holds us up. Just, going from sort of land assembly, which takes a long time, to then planning, which also takes a long time. Getting from sort of initial concept to actually starting on site and completing a scheme can take a very long time. So those are probably the two key ones for me.
Okay, and for you, Stephen, what would you like to see more of in Surrey?
Affordable homes. There you go. Lots and lots and lots of affordable homes. Like, we say, for example, if we're doing a larger private site that we go out and buy some land, we would probably over deliver on the affordable. Instead of delivering 25 or 30%, we'd look to deliver 50%. But yeah, I'll leave that hanging out there.
What type of sort of schemes would you envisage them being in? That, low rise or?
For us, generally, we don't have much over 3 or 4 stories, to be honest, and that's just the makeup of our stock. So we probably wouldn't really be doing much that's outside our comfort zone in terms of that. So yes, it would be generally low rise. We with what's happened in the last year, then I think we more of a focus away from flats and more to houses if we can, and if that means reducing the density in some areas, then that so be it. But it's about building the right thing for the right people. So yeah, yes, and we're just, and I think people alluded to it earlier, amenity space, we make sure every property we have has its own private amenity space going forward, and just you have to think about people working from home, all that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the design is very important.
Absolutely. And Matt, I'll ask you the same question, please, and that will be our final question for this morning, because we've done our 10 minutes.
Okay. So can you just repeat that for me?
Yeah, what would you like to see more of in Surrey?
Development, definitely. Yeah, I suppose is executing the plan that's going to come off all of these infrastructure upgrades that they're doing. It's to facilitate development, isn't it? So more, really great schemes that provide really sort of high quality amenity for not only residents of these schemes, but also Surrey as a county.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. So thank you to all of our fantastic speakers this morning. It was great to hear about your plans. And to wrap up, thank you to everyone for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the session. As always, please do get in touch if you have any feedback. Our next event will be in March, date to be confirmed, and the theme will be around net zero carbon. So keep an eye out for the invites coming to you soon. Thank you, as always, to our voluntary committee members for helping to make these events happen. That's White Labels, who do all of our marketing and event hosting, done a great job hosting us this morning on Zoom. Charles Russell Speechleys, DEFRA, Faithful and Gould, Menzies, Pariga, Savills, Scott Brownrigg, Westridge and Wilmot Dixon. I have a message from the SECB's Chief Executive, which I'm pleased to pass on this morning. Whilst it's been a challenging year, there's been a lot of great work that deserves recognition. So I'd just like to take a minute to let you know about Constructing Excellence SECB's Awards, which are now open, and I'd encourage you to get involved with their exciting programme. Entering is free. All you need to do is just enter, register, download the entry forms, and then submit them before the entries close on the 15th of March. To end this session, we're going to play the highlights video from the last award ceremony, and then this session today will end. Also, the club are going to be sending out details to you for how to register later today. So have a good day, everybody.
In 2020, we took our Constructing Excellence SECB Awards online and delivered live judging and awarding all on the one day. I hope this snapshot will inspire you to enter the 2021 CE SECB Awards, become a sponsor, and importantly, see how your organisation can capitalise on the achievements of our winners. The judges were very impressed with the entry because we feel that we've seen the future of the construction industry. I'm very pleased to announce the winner of the Offsite Award 2020 is Mid Group.
5 years ago, we took a look at an industry that we believed was pretty inefficient in its approach to design and construction, and we just needed to rethink that. We believe that off-site or manufacturing-led construction is the right way to go.
The winner of the award is Walker Construction.
Any award is a great honour for any company, but one that involves our people is particularly close to our hearts, as we do a lot of work in helping promote our employees through the business, right from apprenticeship through to director level.
So I'm really pleased to announce the winner of the Client of the Year Award 2020 is Sutton Housing Society.
The 2020 CE SEPI Awards Prize for Integration and Collaborative Working is Artelia for Project Kale.
Project Kale was created collaboratively between several key stakeholders, between Shell, our client, Artelia, and our ecosystem of designers and contractors. It was a great project to be part of, and we're proud to be here today.
And the winner is, for the People's Choice Award, goes to Innovative Improvements to Bandsaws.
As sixth formers at Queen Elizabeth School, Barnet, we worked with Morgan Noble to design an innovative solution to improve the mobile application's MA615 portable bandsaw. With our project, we truly believe that we have constructed excellence.
So from myself and the team, congratulations to all 91 teams that were shortlisted from all those that were entered. Particular congratulations to those that won, and a final thanks to our proud sponsors who were just so critical to enable these awards to happen.